thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. For those that don't know, some of you might be more familiar with company drinks than you are with us. We're the Friends of Tower Hamlets Cemetery Park. We are an old Victorian cemetery, but now a public park, and we use the space to run events, deliver volunteer opportunities centred around nature and heritage. But we have a lot of community partners in East London and further out of there, really, and we've been using our online talks to teach people about the cemetery park during the lockdown, but also to kind of signpost people to other amazing community organisations that you might be interested in if you don't already know about them, and maybe you just want to know more about them if you already know. So today we have the lovely Cam and Alice.
Hi everyone. So Alice and I are 1/3 of the core organising team of Company Drinks. We wanted to have an extra team member with us this evening, but he's not very well. So hello from a smaller group. My name is Cam. I can't describe what I am. I kind of oversee the programmes and the partnerships in Barking and Dagenham, which is where we work. And Alice?
Hi. So I'll be talking a bit more about what I do, but it's mainly involved in the growing aspect and facilitating workshops and groups at our base, and also going out on trips to other gardens.
So Company Drinks is we're technically a CIC. We're based in Barking and Dagenham. We always have been. We were nomadic for 3 or 4 years. We're now based in the old Outdoor Bowls Pavilion in Barking Park. So we've actually got a presentation to show you, because it's really strange for us to be talking and not either serving drinks and food or outside somewhere. So we've got pictures of how we operate, and we'll just talk a bit about a year in the life of Company Drinks, basically. So I'm going to share the screen, and Alice and I are going to chop and change and switch between us. If Alice has trouble with her internet connection, she'll give me a little flag and I'll take over. But we're going to try as best we can without being stood next to each other with drinks in our hands. Imagine that we're in a lovely old bowls pavilion with a big green in front of us, and we've maybe got a fire on usually, which we shouldn't be, and we're serving up nice locally made drinks. We're going to somehow manage to top and tail on a PowerPoint on Zoom. So Company Drinks used to be called Company Movements Deals and Drinks. If anyone knows of us, that's actually like our original name. So we've got a website which is basically our calendar of events, and on social media we're called Going Picking. Company Drinks is a really strange thing to talk about initially, because it's not actually a drinks company to start with. We started as a cultural heritage project based in Barking and Dagenham, and it was founded by an arts collective called My Villages. And My Villages are really interested in the kind of evolution of the relationship between the urban and the rural. Their projects are always looking at how the two cross over, but also are very separate at times. So this diagram, this beautiful detailed map, is of London, as you can probably tell, the East London, which is where Tower Hamlets Cemetery Park also sits in. So we've got this really unusual history in Barking and Dagenham, which this diagram actually describes. So what you've got in London is you've got the city, you've got the East End and the West End, and then you've got kind of the boundary of Greater London. And we think of that space in between the boundary of Greater London as being quite urban. But what used to happen until about 60 years ago, for 100 years, and some people might know this because it's a very common East London history, is that you had families, mostly women and children, from the East End of London, from the working class East End, who would go and work on the hop farms of Kent out here in the countryside. They'd actually get on a train called the Hopping Express. It was a kind of train that was allocated for those seasonal workers. And so they'd go and work in Kent, pick hops for the season, and it became this quite once a year seasonal, almost quite feminist culture, because it was mostly the women and children, the men were left behind. They picked hops for the farms, but anything that was left behind, anything that was kind of surplus could be sold. The women set up bank accounts and did things like buying uniforms for the kids. They lived in hoppers' huts in Kent together, and when they picked, they also had this kind of shared culture. So there's things like recipes and poems and songs that the hoppers sang, and there's this really rich kind of shared story there. And then what happened was those people kept doing that for 100 years, and then the East End moved, basically. So what used to be Essex and farmland, you get the Ford factories and the other factories built, and the Becontree estate is constructed, which was the biggest housing estate in Europe. And so a lot of the people who were living in the slums of the East End moved out to Becontree estate, worked in factories full time. They started working full time, so they weren't able to do this journey to Kent in the summer. And so what you end up with is this weird crossover between countryside and city happening in farmland, with people who used to live in the kind of urban East End. And so it's a real like mishmash. And so company drinks started as a way of celebrating that heritage, but also looking at what happens if you re-invite people to go picking together. Can you kind of bring to life parts of that culture, but also invite other cultures? Because obviously in all countries you have people who are seasonal pickers or year-round pickers, or people do picking as part of their culture and as part of the way that they source food and medicines as well. And so this picture here is just showing that crossover between urban and countryside as well. Like, this is a picture of Dagenham, which is not how people think of Dagenham. So it's a picture of how it was just before the Becontree estate was built. And this is a photo of 2 of our volunteers. So the whole point of company drinks was to look at what happens if you go picking again. You've got a very different landscape happening in Dagenham, but you've got really like blurred lines between people's relationships between urban and rural, and you've got this very recent memory of people who did this activity and went picking together. So that's like the background of it, and what that looks like is it was a cultural heritage funded project. So it was an arts project initially, and My Villages and Catherine Baum, who founded the project, thought of a way of running something that would happen year round that celebrated that history, but also did it differently in a way that more people could experience. So we talk about everything we do at Company Drinks as part of this cycle, and so we're going to actually illustrate this cycle as part of our presentation, and we're going to show you what this looks like. This cycle is our year-round program. So we are technically a drinks company, but we're also so much more. And basically it's kind of an open public invitation to be involved in every single stage of that process. So the people we work with, and we say work with, they can be pickers, they can be sellers, they can be branders, they can be bottlers, they can do the processing, but they can also do the inviting and the outreach. They can come up with names for a cola, they can just tell us that they'd like to do something with a drink in their community. And so each one of these stages involves different groups in the community, but also different partners in a way that is not exactly what you'd imagine of a drinks company, I hope, because it's not that financially viable if it was what every drinks company did, but it's why we like it. And it's seasonal as well. So we're still looking at the fact that we have a growing season and a picking season. We have a processing and a bottling season where we churn drinks out. And then we actually do have a trading season. So we have, apart from this year obviously, but we usually have a trading season where we sell our drinks at events. And then we have a kind of reinvesting season, which is when we invite new people to take part, and we kind of spread the word and find out who would like to be involved in what way. So just to go around the production cycle, basically, this is growing. When we first started, we were nomadic. We didn't have green space. So we used to rely on partners for ingredients for drinks. And so this is kind of showing you some of the types of spaces that we used to work with quite regularly to get ingredients for drinks, which then went into cordials or sodas. So top left is a farm in Essex, one of the first farms we went to. We do a lot of gleaning, so we contact farmers and we go and pick ingredients after the machines have been. And for this, we will quite literally go with a coach load of families and we will talk about farming and we'll talk about gleaning and food waste, and at the same time we'll be picking blackcurrants and then making our own Ribena from the leftover Ribena blackcurrants. So we've got the top right is Dagenham Farm, Dagenham Starter Farm. That's somewhere we used to go to. Some of you will know Dalston Curve Garden, bottom left. We've picked herbs and flowers from there. And then a few of you might know the Phytology. Bethnal Green Nature Reserve is a garden that we've used quite a lot for ingredients and worked with. But these days, because we've moved into our own space, we're doing some of our own growing. So Alice will just talk a little bit about the growing that we're doing at the moment. If she's... No? No, thumbs down. All right, I will do my best to do it justice.
Oh no!
Oh no, are you back?
Am I back?
You're back.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to hotspot and use the Wi-Fi to see what's best. So hopefully it will carry through. Yeah, in summer 2018, we began a garden at the pavilion. So we've got this. I mean, the photo you can see now is a sort of some of our core members. We began building some raised beds and a compost. We've got a rainwater collection system. We've got some kind of dead hedges and bug habitats that we've been building over time. And it's all on this strip of grass, which is about 5 by 15 metres. It's not massive. And we meet weekly with a group of adults who tend to get referred to us by the vocational support services, which was actually a partnership, which was how the Grow Club came to be. So it was recognising a kind of want for green activities outdoors, but with a sort of well-being baseline. So yeah, here's just a couple of photos. What we do in these sessions, we do the whole range of growing, from sowing seeds to propagating to harvesting and saving our own seeds. We have a real focus on providing forage and habitat for pollinators and insects and birds, and alongside all of that, making it a nice garden to actually be in. What we have in the raised beds are herbs which we grow, which we'll talk a bit more about later. So last year we began doing not only the adult sessions, but also running something called Family Wild and Well, which involves doing gardening sessions as we do with the adults, but obviously slightly altered. But the children and their parents or carers take part in all aspects of the growing. You can see it's the bottom left is quite a nice demonstration that it also becomes a sort of social place. So the parents can relax and hang out whilst we're doing stuff with the young people.
You'll see from the bottom right picture, we've got a bit of a funny rule at Company Drinks, which is that anything that we grow or pick together should somehow feed back into drinks, so that it's not like, so that's our kind of area of expertise, but it also kind of taps into the fact that if you're talking about a particular type of product, that's actually a really nice way of getting the young people to latch on to what we're doing, because they have such affinity to drinks brands and drinks products, and that whole product development type aspect of what we do. So it's quite funny that, like, even with the growing and the gardening, we talk about essence and aromas and drinks all the time. So it's about kind of tea and juices and cordials rather than fruit and veg as food, because it somehow seems to tap into what the young people are into more, and they're like they've got the highest brand loyalty when it comes to drinks and things. So anything that you do that feels kind of relevant, it's funny, even when they make, if you see in the bottom right, even when they're like designing their own cups for the drinks, it somehow makes it that bit closer to stuff that they'd invest in, which is very strange. But yeah, it works. Alice, you're back, I think.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is when we do, as well as the sort of regular sessions, we also do more ad hoc kind of events over the holidays. So it might be building a bug habitat, top left, or an Easter egg hunt where the prizes were things that were made by our Thursday group. So there's a bit of a cross-pollination there. And top right, you can see that was part of a chocolate making workshop led by a local chocolatier, where we used strawberries, which you can see mushed up there.
Yeah, they were picked on one of the picking trips to Maynard's farm in Kent, in Ticehurst. So that's one of our regular farms that we go to. It's an organic farm. Also, just to big up the chocolatier in Barking and Dagenham, her name is Oyin Okusanya, and she has something called Cocoa Social Enterprise, and you should look her up. She's great.
She's great. Yeah.
Shall I go to the next one? Was there anything else on that slide, Alice?
No, I think that's okay.
Cool. Talking about picking and hop picking, this will be a familiar scene if anyone has any hop picking in their family. The first year of Company Drinks, we did a trip to Lamberhurst in Kent, which is quite well known for still having hop farms. Some of the original ones that some of the first people we spoke to in the first year used to go to. So yeah, the inviting people to go picking again was actually something that appealed to lots of different ages, and also it felt like something useful because we were going to actually make a beer together again. So that's our first ever family pick, as we call it, outside the hop farm is called Little Scotney Farm, if anyone knows it. So yeah, that's our favourite pick of the year, and it happens in September, obviously, in the picking season. We all get on a coach, go together, make hop wreaths, pick hops, take them home, deliver them to a brewery, and sing hopping songs and eat hopping cake, and it's just the best day ever, and I'm really gutted we're not doing it this year. Picking also comes in the form of gleaning. So I mentioned earlier that we kind of teach people about what you can do with food waste. So we pick red currants and black currants from, well, basically any farm in the UK that grows red currants or black currants, it's for Ribena. So we pick waste Ribena currants, which we then use to make our own Barking and Dagenham Ribena. So they're kind of, the young people understand the kind of relationship with that brand that they know. And they think that the one that they helped make is better. So that's great. This was actually on Sunday. So talking about that annual trip to go currant picking, we actually went picking again for the first time since lockdown. This Sunday, I thought I'd share these photos. So Maynard's farm is a farm in Ticehurst, which is on the edge of Kent and Sussex. And they're really kind, and they said we could come back. We had to think very differently about how to do it because obviously we couldn't hire a coach, and we couldn't encourage people to get public transport. So we had to apply for specific funding actually to do things differently. But yeah, we ended up spending a day with a large group of families from Barking and Dagenham, some of whom don't have gardens or balconies or access to nearby green space. And we hung out on a farm for a day and picked black and red currants, and we're going to redistribute those to local residents, and we'll have made something together despite the logistical struggles. So yeah, we're trying to get back to what we do every year. Yeah, you can see the hand sanitizer. But yes, trying to keep picking, and because that's the thing, making the drinks together is the thing that keeps us going. Picking also looks like guerrilla foraging. So this is us going picking probably for I'm guessing this was elderflower. This was in the first year. The Becontree estate in Dagenham is actually quite green. There's a lot of open parks, and there's a lot of wild planting and not much pesticide used in the parks in Barking and Dagenham. So we've got park ranger permission. We can go and, respectfully and carefully we go picking and foraging. So quite often we'll do a call out, and a load of families will join us, and we'll just go for a walk and learn about what's available already. This is one of our local parks. If you are able to get there and have a car, it's called East Brook End Country Park. It's an amazing, vast park. It's like being in the countryside, and it's in Dagenham. So this is when we were picking elderflower last year, which we used to use for elderflower soda, but we've kind of cut back a bit on our drink scaling, and we now do cordial. We make it ourselves in-house. And everyone thinks the Elderflower Cordial tastes better than what's on the supermarket shelves because it's from the Borough. And yeah, this is just to expand on Alice's point about the fact that we are now growing on site. We're also picking on site. So it's obviously a much smaller scale, because I'm sure you all know that you can't bulk grow out of raised beds. But yeah, we're starting to do picking as a kind of method of talking to young people around kind of herbs and natural resources. This is a group of ESOL, English Second Language students from Barking and Dagenham College, and we did a session on kind of herbs and sharing people's knowledge, and like lots of people obviously had different experiences of different herbs because of where they came from and how they use them. So that was a really nice session, and we've started doing more of this kind of well-being, wellness, cultural sharing stuff now that we've got space to actually grow stuff and invite people to the space. No, lost it. So back to the cycle of production processing. In our first year, we actually had everything produced for us. So we did the picking, and then we would deliver the ingredients to producers who we believe in what they're doing, basically. So this is Square Root sodas, who I'm sure you've seen in cafes and things. They source very responsibly. They have really good relationships with farmers, and they do small batch sodas, which means when we approached them, and they probably regret this decision now 7 years later, but in year one when we approached them and said, if we brought you a load of something, could you bottle it into a nice soda? They said yes, and we still have that relationship with them. So we pay them the bottling fee, we book in kind of small batch production lines, the ingredients that are used in those sodas we have gone and foraged with local residents, and then we make sure that we sell those sodas at an affordable price in the borough, but we also sell them at events and things elsewhere in London as part of the kind of reinvesting in the public programme. They've recently moved. They were in Hackney, they're now in Walthamstow, and they're still doing good work. This is the Colonel Brewery. If you've ever had Colonel beer, they make our beer once a year. I'm really sad that they probably won't be this year. But yeah, the Colonel Brewery again is a small independent brewer, and when we again said to them, we'd like to pick some hops and bring them to you, would you be up for bottling a new beer for us? They said sure. And in fact, it's become a really nice relationship where we kind of are the liaison between the farmer and Colonel, and we sometimes introduce them to new strands of hops, and they then create new ranges as a result of having made a fresh beer for us. So that's quite exciting. That's our hop pickers at I think that was before we had a beer, because they all look like they're kind of concentrating quite hard. Processing is also done by young drinks entrepreneurs in Barking and Dagenham. So we make it really clear that, it's not rocket science to make drinks. And so we quite literally do workshops where we get young people together and they come up with their own flavours, and they name the drinks, and they come up with like marketing campaigns and all this around this drink that they've created themselves, quite often with an ingredient that we've picked together as well. And we make sure we have fun with it, but also we're trying to kind of tap into the fact that this kind of craft food industry isn't something that's inaccessible, and therefore if you start early, who knows what you'll come up with. So I run something called Molecular Fizz, which is our, I guess, young people drinks academy type program, and that's all about the flavour of the science of flavour and experimenting with that and coming up with their own ideas. The top right is our cola workshop. So we work with, if you don't know them, Bristol Cube. It's a community land trust type cultural centre in Bristol, and they make their own cola concentrate because they believe that we shouldn't be giving all our money to Coca-Cola for concentrate in arts venues. So they've got an open source recipe, and they actually do produce it as a workshop with young people. So we do that once a year.
Great. Yeah, so this is more processing of the herbal teas that we grow. So once we, it all happens within a sort of 20-metre distance, because the gardens are outside the building, where we then dehydrate the teas, and when we collectively do taste tests and come up with different blends. In the first year, a lot of our blends had a base of mint because we had a real abundance of mint. But since then, we've come up with some quite creative teas, and a lot of them are to do with being relaxing, perhaps, or helping you sleep, or being calming. I think it was important that as a group, we decided what to plant. As a group, we decided what teas to make, and then as a group, we came up with the names. So a couple that you can see here, we've got Novel Tea, which is mint, borage, calendula and mallow. We've also got Yarrow Escape, which made us all laugh a bit. Some other ones are Heavy Nettle, which is a nettle-based tea. And also a favourite, which is Acidity, which is a lemon verbena, lemon balm.
The fact that we hand over the naming of our drinks to the people who make them is actually a really nice thing, because it means that while you're making it, you're thinking of the next stage, and you kind of have ownership of that. Yeah. And you guys love puns.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a picture of bottling at Square Root Sodas, the pros. This is not us yet, but one day we would like to have equipment like this. But bottling also looks like this. When we make the cola concentrate with young people, they quite literally bottle it up and take it home and tell their family that they made cola. And so it's just that one step closer to realizing that you can make your own stuff. Our cola is called Bad Cola. And just to show that we hand over the branding side of things, our Bad Cola stands for Barking and Dagenham, and the name and the branding was come up with by young people at Barking and Dagenham College. So that is quite literally the logo. They stuck some tape on the wall. We took a photo of it, gave it to our graphic designers, and they did something with that. And we now have to wear bad on our t-shirts when we do bars and have to explain to people the joke. But yeah, the young people were pleased with that. And it's become a thing people say in the borough as well, which is really nice. It's like this kind of local cola, but they love the whole bad. And we talk about the fact that it's called bad because there's no such thing as good cola, but it's also bad as in good. Are you with us, Alice? Talk about bottling. Yeah.
So the bottling is another part of the process which also happens in the building. We do it with a group called the Thursday Group, and we meet and we drink tea and we have a delicious slice of cake made by one of our amazing volunteers. And then we as a group, we do this final really important part of the making of the drinks, which is to clean the bottles, make sure they're not sticky from the bottling process, and put the labels on them.
We always laugh at this picture because we think it kind of looks a bit like exploitation, but it is just that this particular group that meets once a week is always wanting to be involved in the production line because they feel like they need to be, because they did the picking of the flowers and they want to do the last bit. So it's quite funny that we keep having to pull this picture out and be like, not how it seems.
The next one is the next picture is how it seems, lots of smiles and
yeah. It's more realistic. They're regular members of the Thursday group. They've been involved since day one. Vi on the right, the very famous Vi Charlton, she went hop picking as a girl, and she has actually influenced a lot of what we do because she's got diaries from when she used to go hop picking, and we've referred to that for so much of the kind of program that we do. And the baking, she's a kind of impressive baker. So this is what apart from this year, this is what kind of a range of company drinks would look like. So it's just showing off basically, but it does show you that each one of those drinks will have been produced through a series of either picking activities or growing activities. If you look here, there's a drink called Elderflower Power. So that was another one that we did in partnership with some young people, and they came up with the name. Trying to see if there's any other. No, that's it. This is our Ribena kind of replacement. There's a sneaky cider in that one. I shouldn't be showing that one. We weren't meant to make cider that year. So this is our distributing, and distributing looks like a drinks factory making drinks, putting them in a bottle and sending them to us. But we also, as a kind of cultural public program, we also distribute our drinks to galleries. So last year we were featured in the V&A Food Bigger Than the Plate exhibition. We sell, so we usually have a bar at Frieze Art Fair every year where we sell our drinks. It's also where we launch them, but also we sell at local events, and the young people are involved in that process, and they come up with ideas for where we should be selling drinks to sell the drinks that they helped make. This is Trey and George, who I worked with a few years ago from the Technical Skills Academy, and they had actually embarking, and they had come up with 2 drinks flavor combinations and brands and labels, and they picked the ingredients themselves. We also do selling locally and at events, so we make sure that we're present in the borough, and we make sure that our drinks are affordable. So we kind of we talk about the dual economy, so the drinks are 90p to £1 if you buy them in Barking and Dagenham, and £3 in Regent's Park, and we kind of tell people that when we do it, to make sure that they're affordable in the borough where they're made, because otherwise that would be really strange and exploitative. So we talk about this kind of the fact that we operate on 2 different scales. Reinvesting also looks like the volunteers themselves selling everything that they make at local events. So this is Steve, who's one of the weekly growers who we quite literally can't turn away if we wanted to during COVID. He's very, very active and very busy and wants to learn from nature, and this is him running a stall with all our different types of products grown with different members of the community, with Alice. These are just some of the tea products, again at another stall, again selling things locally, making sure they're affordable and getting people to understand that this product represents like so much more in terms of what went into it. And then for us, reinvesting. So reinvesting kind of sounds financial, but that's, maybe one of us writing grants. But the other thing that we do is we make sure that we kind of take and give back from the network that we see ourselves in. And so one of the really important things to our public program is anyone who's involved in making drinks or growing gets to kind of share our network. And so we quite often visit other sites, and we introduce the groups to people who are running organisations or green spaces that we love. For example, the Tower Hamlets Cemetery Part, which we've dragged people to so many times now. And we love coming to Tower Hamlets Cemetery and talking about kind of the biodiversity, and the wildflowers especially is something we come to see quite often. But we also actually talk about yourselves, the Friends of Tower Hamlets, and the way that you operate, and we talk about different types of organisations that look after green spaces, so that they understand where we sit in that as an organisation, and therefore kind of they feel like they're part of that conversation, especially when we're reaching out to other green spaces so often. There's also a bit of an affinity to Tower Hamlets Cemetery, because so many of them hail from kind of Whitechapel, Wapping, Limehouse, Shadwell, Stepney. So yeah, it's really nice to go back. They always kind of spot names when we walk around, which is quite funny. These are growers and the Thursday group on a visit to Tower Hamlets Cemetery. In 2017, we came for a visit. We were looking at wildflowers and herbs that grow in East London's parks. We were going to be making an urban herbal soda with herbs picked at Phytology, and we finished up in Tower Hamlets Cemetery on a kind of flower spotting walk. And then we were about to leave, and Vi, who's the one in the middle, she's in all our pictures, cracked open the cheese scones. So we had a little picnic in the cemetery, and they were talking about how it was magical, and we thought they were talking about the flowers and the light, but it turns out they were talking about the scones. But yeah, they're very fond of the space. Where's this, Alice?
This next one is Plantastic, which is a allotment in Dagenham that's organised by a fantastic woman called Kathy. Plantastic is, we went and we met with Kathy, and she was able to walk us around, show us all the different things that they're growing. I know previously Company Drinks has collaborated and made a drink with Kathy, is that right?
Yeah.
But it was really it's a chance for us to talk about what we do. Kathy has since come to visit us. She gifted us some herbs, which we then planted in the garden. So there was a nice exchange in that sense.
Yeah.
Similarly, the next slide is of a visit to Core Landscapes, which is a Meanwhile project. At that time, it was in Whitechapel. And it was an incredibly cold day.
Our groups are also obsessed with the Dalston Curve Garden, and again, they love how it's run, and they love the guys who run it, and they love the kind of programming, and they're always saying, like, can we have a pizza oven? Can we do schools? Like, that they get why we take them there, and it's just really fun to bring them, and then they take over for the day. This is Forest Farm Peace Garden, if anyone knows it. It's an amazing space. They mostly do growing programs with the local referrals through, I think, mental health services. And so because our Grow Club is through referrals through vocational support for mental health services, we went and kind of had a talk from them about their types of programming and how we could replicate some of what they were doing. And the group had really great questions, and it's just an amazing space. So yeah, always with tea. So the last kind of section is just on the fact that we've finally moved into a space. So we were always nomadic. We always operated out of other people's growing spaces and other people's production spaces. And then we somehow, through doing that for so long, landed ourselves a leaky old bowls club, which has pros and cons. And we love it because of the fact that it's on one level and it's got the green. But it's very basic because it's an old bowls club. But we've slowly been applying for funding and refurbishing it. But the best thing about having a space is it means we can invite more people to be involved in what we do, but also to kind of run their own bits of what we do, which is the bit we're more interested in anyway. And when you have space, you can offer space. So if that makes sense. So this is the Bowls Club, which you're all welcome to, I guess, when things relax a bit and we're able to go and visit each other's spaces more. And yeah, it has a club room, as all sports clubs do. And then on the right, you have the two changing rooms. And what we've done is we've turned one of the changing rooms into a super basic production kitchen. And it's if you imagine a changing room, but just with stainless steel sheets on the walls and a few kind of basic bits of kitchen equipment, that's our production kitchen currently. And it's where we make the cordials, but it's also where we do training sessions and let groups do cooking workshops usually. We also invite, now that usually we would have gone to other people's spaces, like when we come to the cemetery, but now we can invite people to us. So we do things like a program called Digesting Politics, which is where we do a free meal and we invite somebody who's doing something amazing in the world of food or growing or landscape or kind of land activism. So this is Fozia Ismail, who started Arawello Eats, which is a Somalian supper club / research type platform. And yeah, we get just a load of people from the borough who are interested in food around a table, and we have really great conversation because it's such a kind of informal, cozy setup. And it means you have some really, sometimes like challenging subjects come to the table, but in a really open and like safe way that people can ask questions of the speaker rather than a big formal talk or Zoom. And then yeah, we have as many big celebrations as we can. So we try and do things like harvest tea parties and Christmas get-togethers and just invite members of the community so that people can see the space, and then if they've got an idea for something they'd like to do in the space, that they can talk to us about it. And I guess the only other thing to say is that yeah, with COVID, I know we're kind of hitting question time, but I'm just going to wrap up really quickly, just talking about what we're doing in COVID, which is the groups that we've talked about are the groups that we've been focusing on. And I don't know if anyone's seen our stuff online, but we have been slowly trying to encourage people to go picking again, by doing so very safely, and kind of everyone doing their own picking, and then we remotely come and pick stuff up and then produce something together and then deliver the drinks back to people, but also make a donation to, say, a food bank or a community group. We've slowly been picking up that kind of activity. We're doing a lot of kind of online content around how the members can keep doing bits of what they do with us at home. And then Alice has been running something called the Tea Club. So it's, again, kind of trying to get those people who would usually be growing together. Alice is harvesting the herbs and sending them kind of flat pack tea bags and feedback sheets, and they are putting the tea bags together at home. You know, they've got like a 10-minute mindful meditation while they're brewing, and then they're speaking to us about it afterwards. But if anyone has specific questions about that stuff, I guess we'll leave it for the questions. But yeah, what that looks like now is, I'm seeing these photos and getting really nostalgic. Yeah, this year is very different to what you've just seen, but I think that's all. If anyone had questions or wanted to add anything.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, guys. That was really fantastic. And I learned a lot from that as well. And it's really amazing to see like just how many different people can come together over something that they've actually probably never been involved before, or maybe never even heard of before. So yeah, I really like that, and I feel like I could learn a lot from you with our community engagement as well. Great. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. I'll also switch your microphone on. You're very welcome to ask questions that way. We do have a question in the chat from our very own Susanna, who was asking, what's the recipe for hopping cake?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I've just seen, Susanna, you've also tried cube cola. The hopping cake is, so there's a lot of recipes. Again, I'm not trying to tell people how it was, but it's just, this is stuff that's been fed to me. But there's a lot of recipes that were kind of lo-fi in terms of, you know, cakes you could bake in a biscuit tin over an open fire kind of thing when you were staying in the hopping huts, because not all of them had, you know, cookers and things, if at all. And so hop cake is a cake that has basically just the fruit and the flour in it, and I think it's tea you sometimes use to bind it together. Yeah, it's like a kind of very low ingredient cake, but a lot of people who used to go hopping have kind of passed it down. So if you say hop it, it's a fruit cake basically that doesn't have much in it.
It sounds like a lockdown cake.
Yeah.
Once you still need flour, wait.
Yeah, exactly. There is one that doesn't have flour as well, but I wish Vi was doing the talk, because she's the
So Lara says, thank you for such an interesting talk. You do lots of different exciting things. You mentioned your origins were in cultural heritage. How do you describe your work now?
Oh, that's such a tough one, because we're kind of doing an exercise. Alice's face is like, I'm getting out of this. We're doing an exercise in the moment as a group of trying to talk about how that exactly. We talk about ourselves as a kind of co-production space, and then that's often how we talk about ourselves now. But we still definitely are tapping into cultural heritage. It's just, it's different cultural heritage. So where we started with a very specific story, which was the hop picking, now we look into the cultural heritage of things like herbalism in activism, or kind of women's stuff around no alcohol movements. I can't remember the name, sorry. So yeah, we look into other kind of cultural heritage stories around either farming or food, activism quite often. And what's really nice about that is that even the kind of original members who were with us from day one, they're down with that, because it taps into so much of what the hop picking was about. We've got a couple of members who were involved with the Dagenham Ford strikes, and so they again are kind of super into when we talk about alternative economies and creating like communal economy type models. Historically, they've always got quite a lot to bring to the table. So
great. And Jackie asks, is the picking that you do the same as foraging?
Yeah, we talk about the two as separate, but it is all, we talk about going picking, it's all the same thing. So the foraging is in parks, and we tend to kind of get permission from park rangers and teach people about how you tap into natural resources in a way that's not disruptive, also not disgusting. We always talk about, you know, not below the knee, not above the shoulder. So we talk about foraging as a activity, whereas the picking is more the themes of people who either grow and pick or pick seasonally as part of, you know, it's more farming related, but they're one and the same with us because we do such small batch stuff anyway.
I've got a question. If people did want to get involved with what, I mean, I know it's a bit more difficult at this time, but as things start to ease up, how can people kind of find out more, get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we're always looking for partners. So if people have if people have found something amazing about a particular herb and they'd love to see how it works in like a range of tea and talk about the history of that, you know, that's the kind of thing we're always reaching out about, especially to other green spaces. We're about to start a piece of work with Phytology, Mobile Apothecary, on kind of activism and herbs and things. But in terms of people who want to come and take part, again, not right now, but usually we have a very open door policy, which is that all of our events, unless specified, are free and open to everyone. So all you would have to do is go on our website, and our website is a calendar, which again right now doesn't really look like a calendar because it just has kind of blog posts, but usually it would be a calendar of events, and it would have all the details on the events, and you could just turn up. Especially when we do bars at things as well, we often invite people to come to the bar so they can just literally meet us one-to-one and try the drinks. Alice's gardening sessions tend to be kind of pre-organised because we have different groups we work with who are quite vulnerable, so that's more of a get in touch and let us know when you would like to come along and stuff. But yeah, we're quite...
And also signing up to the mailing list is a good route.
Yeah, when we're going on a picking trip, we do just do a shout out on the mailing list, and we say we'll be in this park at this time, and then a foraging walk, and people can just turn up. And we always say we'll be there whatever the weather, and it's free, and because that's the whole point of foraging. But we're just trying to get more people doing it together. Again, slightly different now.
Great. And Susanna, she has put a link for the website, what's on, and the way you can subscribe to the mailing list in the chat just now. If anyone just wants to subscribe.
Yeah,
we're getting used to these online talks.
Yeah, smooth. Yeah, currently if you were to subscribe to our mailing list now, it would be our kind of online content. So we're doing lots of grow at home guides, lots of family friendly activities. We've got a Vimeo channel, which I'll write in a second, where we've got very lo-fi but just tips on how you do outdoor wellness stuff. Alice's Windowsill Wednesday. Growing plants on your windowsill from kind of stubs of old plants. So yeah, that's what our mailing list is at the moment, because we obviously can't advertise events much, but yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions or want to switch on their microphone? You're very welcome to. Otherwise we can wrap up.
Anyone want to heckle me on hopping?
No, we've got an easy crowd. Great. Well, thank you so much, Cam and Alice. It was really, really interesting. And thank you, everybody, for coming to listen. And we hope we see you at company drink events or at the Cemetery Park in the near future.
Hopefully,
so thank you, everybody.
Hopefully soon.
Great. And it'd be lovely for us to collaborate on an event in future as well, I think, if you guys would be up for it, so we can be in touch about that.
Outdoors is a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.